Your support keeps us going, and we've got a lot to cover today because Lance Brozdowski just dropped some fascinating insights about the Dodgers, and it's all centered on Emmet Sheehan, Roki Sasaki, and Tanner Scott. This isn't just speculation, this is the kind of talk that could reshape how we look at the Dodgers' bullpen and their pitching depth moving forward. So grab a seat, because this is going to be one of the most detailed breakdowns you'll hear anywhere. Now, let's start with Emmet Sheehan. This is a young arm that Dodgers fans already know has sky-high potential, but when someone like Lance Brozdowski highlights his importance, you pay attention. Sheehan is not your typical prospect who just throws hard. He's got the kind of arsenal that can play up both in the rotation and in the bullpen, and that's exactly why he's being talked about as a potential X-factor for Los Angeles. Think about it, the Dodgers are in a position where they're constantly dealing with injuries to starters, guys going down, and the need for depth. Having someone like Sheehan who can step into multiple roles isn't just valuable, it's critical to sustaining a World Series run. Brozdowski pointed out that Sheehan's fastball has the ride that analytics departments drool over, the type of pitch that can make hitters swing under it all day long, and his changeup, when it's on, is one of the most devastating off-speed pitches in the Dodgers' entire system. You put that into a late-inning situation where adrenaline is pumping and the game is on the line, and suddenly you've got a weapon that opponents aren't ready for. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. The Dodgers don't just have Sheehan developing in the background, they're also looking at international talent like Roki Sasaki, the Japanese phenom who's been called the next generational arm to come out of Japan. Sasaki isn't just another pitcher, he's the type of player who can completely alter the balance of power in Major League Baseball the moment he lands stateside. We're talking about a guy who throws triple digits with ease, who has a splitter that vanishes out of the strike zone, and who carries himself with the poise of a veteran despite still being in his early 20s. Now, when Brozdowski connected the dots and mentioned how Sasaki could be a key for the Dodgers' bullpen picture, that sent shockwaves. Why? Because most people expect Sasaki to be a frontline starter, but the Dodgers have a history of easing in international stars, figuring out the best usage, and protecting their arms. So imagine a scenario where Sasaki comes over, spends time getting used to major league hitters, and instead of being thrown immediately into a 180-inning workload, he gets deployed out of the bullpen in massive spots. Suddenly you're looking at a bullpen weapon with stuff that no one in the league has seen up close before, and you're pairing that with Emmet Sheehan's electric mix. That's not just depth, that's dominance. Now let's tie in Tanner Scott, because this is where the puzzle pieces really start to come together. Scott has been one of the most underrated left-handed relievers in baseball, a guy who's had his ups and downs with command but has always had absolutely filthy stuff. When he's locked in, his fastball-slider combination is borderline unhittable, and he brings a different angle that balances out the Dodgers' bullpen. Brozdowski mentioned the outlook for Tanner Scott, and what's clear is that he sees Scott as not just another arm, but potentially the left-handed hammer that can close games or dominate in high-leverage spots. If you've been watching the Dodgers closely over the past few years, you know they've been searching for consistency from the left side in the bullpen. Bringing Scott into this conversation, alongside Sheehan's potential role and Sasaki's looming arrival, creates a picture of a bullpen that could go from very good to historically great. The more you break this down, the more you see how strategic the Dodgers front office really is. They're not just thinking about the next series or the next injury fill-in, they're planning rotations and bullpen usage months, sometimes years, in advance. Brozdowski emphasized that point during the interview, highlighting how Los Angeles always keeps a steady pipeline of arms ready to step in. Think about how many times we've seen relatively unknown pitchers rise to the occasion for the Dodgers, guys like Evan Phillips transforming into elite relievers seemingly overnight. That doesn't happen by accident. That's development, scouting, and planning at the highest level. And now, when you plug in names like Emmet Sheehan, who already showed flashes of brilliance in his limited opportunities, or Roki Sasaki, who may well be the biggest international signing since Shohei Ohtani, you start to realize that the Dodgers are building something that could carry them deep into October again and again. Speaking of Ohtani, you can't ignore the potential connection here. Imagine Ohtani and Sasaki on the same roster, both representing Japanese baseball at the highest stage, both carrying an entire nation's pride with them while also anchoring the Dodgers' pursuit of another championship. The marketing side of that would be enormous, sure, but the baseball side might be even bigger. Ohtani's presence has already boosted the Dodgers brand internationally, but pairing him with Sasaki could create a global powerhouse unlike anything we've seen in the sport. And while Ohtani's pitching future is still uncertain after his surgery, Sasaki could be the arm that picks up the slack and ensures the Dodgers don't miss a beat. Coming back to Sheehan, what makes him so interesting is how adaptable he is. Lance Brozdowski highlighted that adaptability as one of his key strengths. If the Dodgers need a bulk innings guy, Sheehan can step into that role. If they need a high-leverage fireman who can come in and get strikeouts with runners on, Sheehan's stuff plays there too. It's that versatility that gives the Dodgers options, and options are everything when you're managing a pitching staff through a 162-game season and into the postseason gauntlet. Think about how the Braves or Astros have relied on young arms stepping up in October. The Dodgers could have their own version of that, and Sheehan is right in the middle of the conversation. Then there's Tanner Scott. His outlook isn't just about what he can bring individually, but also how he balances out the rest of the bullpen. You need lefties who can face the toughest hitters in the game. When you're going up against lineups stacked with left-handed sluggers or switch hitters who hit better from one side, having someone like Scott gives Dave Roberts flexibility. That's what Brozdowski emphasized. It's not just about having good relievers, it's about having different looks, different angles, different weapons. And Scott is exactly that kind of weapon, especially if he maintains his strikeout numbers while keeping the walks in check. What really stands out from this interview is the vision for the Dodgers bullpen. It's not just about plugging holes, it's about creating a bullpen that can shut down games in the postseason, where every out is magnified. The Dodgers know they'll always be judged by October success, not just regular season dominance. And when you start to picture a bullpen with Evan Phillips, Tanner Scott, Emmet Sheehan, potentially Roki Sasaki, and then mix in guys like Buster Graterol or Alex Vesia, you realize this could be one of the most balanced and devastating groups in baseball. Brozdowski's analysis really shines a light on how close the Dodgers are to making that vision a reality. And let's not forget the human element here. Emmet Sheehan is a young pitcher trying to carve out his place in a loaded roster. Roki Sasaki is dealing with the pressure of potentially being the next great Japanese import in Major League Baseball. Tanner Scott is fighting to prove that he's not just a high strikeout arm but a consistent, trustworthy reliever. All of these stories are playing out simultaneously, and the Dodgers are the team tying them together. That's what makes this moment so fascinating. You've got youth, international stardom, and veteran grit all potentially converging in one bullpen. It doesn't get much more compelling than that. Fans always want to know, what's next? Well, if you're listening to Brozdowski and paying attention to the Dodgers front office, the answer is simple: what's next is dominance. The Dodgers aren't just thinking about 2025, they're building a foundation that could keep them competitive deep into the decade. That's why players like Sheehan matter, why pursuing talents like Sasaki is so important, and why having established arms like Scott can't be overlooked. It's the combination that makes this team dangerous, and it's why opponents know that facing the Dodgers is never going to be easy. And with Emmet Sheehan, Roki Sasaki, and Tanner Scott in the picture, the possibilities are endless. So Dodgers fans, get ready. Because if even half of what we're talking about today comes to fruition, this bullpen could go down as one of the most exciting groups the franchise has ever assembled. And with October baseball always looming in the background, that's exactly the kind of edge Los Angeles needs.